Good evening. It is 6:50, and we are on March 11th, 2020. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting of the Urban Design Commission to order. May we have a roll call?
Nicole Ream.
Here.
Barbara Cash.
Here.
Edith McKee.
Here.
Carla Baxley.
Here.
Art Clark. He'll return in just a second. Oh, and Jerry is here. Jerry Winchester. Here. Thank you. Monica Sullivan and Melissa Morse are excused. Thank you.
No. Art. Okay, moving on to item B. We've got minutes before us from February 12th, 2020. May we have a motion to approve those minutes? May we have a motion to approve the minutes from February 12th, 2020? Is it not working? Oh. We have a motion from Commissioner Clark and a second from Commissioner McKee. Are there any objections or corrections to the minutes being approved? Seeing none and hearing none, the minutes are approved. Moving on to special orders of business. Are there any disclosures? Commissioner Cash.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was absent for the January 8th meeting, and that is when case number 2019-0159 was initially heard. But I have recently listened to the audio recording, and so that I can participate in voting on that one this time.
Thank
voting
you.
for the resolution.
Thank you, Commissioner Cash. We appreciate that. Commissioner Baxley?
Yes, I had to recuse myself from case number 2019-0159, resolution 2020-003. I had a conflict of interest with the applicant. I work for the applicant's representative.
Thank you. Commissioner Baxley will continue to abstain and will not vote on that resolution. I also have a disclosure. Case 2020-0023, the firm that I work for has a term project management contract with the Municipality of Anchorage, project management and engineering. However, I have no knowledge of the project that's coming before us. So, may I get a motion to direct me to participate? We have a motion from Commissioner Winchester. Would you care to speak to your motion?
Yes, I think we'd like to direct you to participate since you have no knowledge of the case at hand.
Thank you, Commissioner Winchester. Commissioner Baxley?
Yes, I agree that we can direct you to participate with this case since you have no knowledge of this case.
Thank you, Commissioner Baxley. Okay, we'll move on to a vote for this motion to direct me to participate in case 2020-0023. I've never done that before. Okay, so we're still under the special order of business. May we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Do we need to move?
Bear with me, I have missed one item on the special order of business. We have the annual election of officers for this meeting. I would, in consideration of the petitioner's time, I would like to have a motion to reorder the agenda to move this to the end of the agenda. I have a motion from Commissioner Clark and a second from Commissioner Cash. Commissioner Clark?
I think it's appropriate to move this to the end of the agenda so that we can get through the business at hand.
Thank you. Commissioner Cash?
I agree.
Thank you. Let's have a vote. Okay, now moving on to the consent agenda. May we now have a motion to approve the consent agenda? We have a motion from Commissioner Cash and a second from Commissioner Winchester. Would anyone like to pull the item from the consent agenda? No. Okay, hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. Okay, we're moving on to the regular agenda. We have before us Case 2020-0023, the Municipality of Anchorage Project Management and Engineering, request for context-sensitive solutions transportation project site plan review, plans in hand for West 30th Avenue and North Star Street upgrades. Do we have a presentation from staff?
Thank you. The Municipality of Anchorage Project Management and Engineering Department, PM&E, is requesting Urban Design Commission approval of a plans in hand application for 65% design that proposes to reconstruct West 30th Avenue and North Star Street and add a multi-use pathway connecting West 32nd Avenue from North Star Street to Arctic Boulevard. This work constitutes Phase 1 of the wider West 32nd Avenue and East 33rd Avenue upgrades project that the Planning and Zoning Commission approved as a design study report. The reconstruction work in this Phase 1 up portion of the project will consist of improved lighting and drainage, new sidewalks, and bicycle lanes on reconstructed West 30th Avenue, multi-use pathway along reconstructed North Star Street, and a new multi-use pathway connecting West 32nd Avenue from North Star Street to Arctic Boulevard. The project will also include a pedestrian refuge island on Arctic Boulevard to facilitate the unsignalized crossing from the new multi-use pathway through AWU property to West 32nd Avenue. And as an interim treatment, PM&E will also restripe West 32nd Avenue between Arctic Boulevard and C Street to include bicycle lanes. So Figure 1 in the staff report shows the extent of the Phase 1 reconstruction discussed in the Plans and Hands report, and Figure 2 shows the total extent of the West 32nd Ave, East 33rd Ave upgrades project. And first, examining consistency with the previous design study report approval, looking at the preferred alternatives, at the time of the DSR approval in June 2019, the PM&E project team was still in discussions with the Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility regarding the preferred alternative of providing a multi-use pathway adjacent to an existing AWWU facility to enable a non-motorized connection on West 32nd Street. Subsequent discussions with AWU resulted in the selection of the multi-use pathway connection through AWU property instead of the alternative proposed alignment that would have routed users further east on 30th Avenue and then south on Arctic Boulevard to reach West 32nd. Another item from the DSR approval is pathway widths. The multi-use pathway widths, the multi-use pathways along North Star Street and through the AWU facility between North Star Street and Arctic Boulevard were proposed to be 10 feet wide in the approved DSR. The 10-foot pathway width along North Star Street was also a factor in the approval of the variance from the requirement to provide sidewalks on both sides of North Star Street, which is a variance that the Planning and Zoning Commission approved at that DSR meeting. The plans in hand application currently proposes reducing the width of both of those multi-use pathways to 8 feet. In their comments on the case, the Municipality of Anchorage Traffic Department has requested an increase to a 10 or 12-foot pathway through the AWU facility between Arctic Boulevard and North Star Street, and a 10-foot pathway on North Star Street between West 30th Avenue and West 32nd Avenue. However, the Traffic Department also mentioned that the multi-use pathway along North Star Street could remain at 8 feet if it is a constrained right-of-way, which it is. And those widths that the Traffic Department cited are based on the most recent design guidance available. And so considering the plans proposed in the DSR for 10-foot pathways, the Traffic Department's comments and best practices in multi-use pathway design, a recommended condition of approval would require wider pathways of 10 feet for the AWU pathway and 8 feet on North Star Street. And then moving on to the plans in hand review for the current phase, looking at compliance with Title 21. The only portion of the plans in hand application that does not comply with Title 21 is the lack of sidewalks on both sides of North Star Street. As discussed, though, the project received a variance from the requirements of this provision through the Planning and Zoning Commission at the DSR stage. And looking at the the context of the area and the long-term impact on existing projected land uses, the addition of pedestrian bicycle facilities in this project is supportive of both existing projected land uses along the existing and projected land uses along the project corridor. And as shown in Figure 3 in the staff report, the existing zoning along West 30th Avenue and North Star Street is higher and has the potential for high-density commercial and residential development, and also numerous multifamily developments already exist along the project corridor. And then, as shown in Figure 4 in the staff report, the land use designations for the area could facilitate rezonings to even higher densities in the future, especially looking at residential uses. And then, so the initial cost of materials, including installation, that is estimated to be $2.8 million, with the entire cost covered by municipal bonds. And long-term costs associated with operations and maintenance are not expected to increase significantly, but any increases will stem primarily from the new pedestrian facilities, additional road striping, upgraded lighting throughout the quarter. The applicant states, however, that the maintenance costs will be mitigated by the utilization of increased striping material thickness that will reduce wear and tear, and that the more efficient upgraded lighting should reduce the energy costs associated with illuminating the corridor. And looking at adherence to existing design themes, the Phase 1 project area is not part of any local area plans. However, the applicant states that the improvements will include wayfinding banners similar to those installed on light poles on Spenard Road to provide an aesthetic transition on the western end of the Phase 1 improvements. And for the Commission, a rendering of those banners and their mounting configurations are provided in Figures 5 and 6 in the staff report. And lastly, accommodation of pedestrians and non-motorized users. This was discussed a bit previously, but this project provides better lighting, new sidewalks, new bicycle lanes, new multi-use pathways, and a median refuge on Arctic Boulevard that provides this two-stage crossing opportunity at West 32nd Avenue. In addition to the increase in the multi-use pathway width between Arctic Boulevard and North Star Street from 8 feet to at least 10 feet, the traffic department in their comments has also requested that the interim striping that was mentioned previously, that the striped bicycle lanes on West 32nd Avenue be increased to 5 feet from 4 feet. And this would be achieved by reducing the vehicle lane widths on that street from 12 feet to 11 feet. The bicycle lane width of 5 feet would be closer to the more ideal 6-foot width recommended by multiple guidance documents. And overall, the pedestrian bicycle improvements are consistent with the existing and anticipated land uses in the project area. And it's important to note they will also improve connections to and from existing frequent public transportation routes on Spenard Road, Northern Lights Boulevard, and Benson Boulevard, as well as the standard route on Arctic Boulevard. For public comments, no comments in this case were received from the community councils or the public. Agency comments, the majority of the departmental and agency comments were technical and not related to the landscaping, streetscape, and pedestrian facilities considered in this review. However, the traffic department, in an additional comment, asked that the proposed 20-mile-per-hour speed limit on West 30th Avenue be raised to 25 miles per hour. The project team mentioned that they will resolve the speed limit requirements with the traffic department. However, the planning department supports retaining the existing 20-mile-per-hour speed limit based on comments received from the Anchorage Metropolitan Area Transportation Solutions, and those comments were on the DSR, not the plans in hand. And also, in that case, to remain consistent with the approved DSR, which cited retaining the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit. So, with that in mind, the department recommends approval of the context-sensitive solutions plans in hand application, subject to the conditions on page 8 of the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Commissioner Baxley?
Yes, I was wondering if you could clarify the pathway widths on page 4. So it looks like the traffic department allowed the multi-use pathway along North Star Street could remain at 8 feet under constrained circumstances, but then below under compliance with this title, it looks like that there will not be sidewalks provided on North Star Street. Is that correct?
That is correct. So the situation is that municipal code requires, in this scenario, sidewalks on both sides of any new street in the Class A zoning district in this situation. But in the DSR stage, there is a variance procedure where PM&E applied to have a single multi-use pathway on North Star Street substituted for sidewalks on both sides. And so the 10-foot proposed pathway at the time was an effort to provide a wider, just kind of more robust facility on one side of the street instead of having to squeeze sidewalks in on both sides of the street. So that variance is approved, and North Star Street is a very constrained right-of-way. I think it's about 30 feet. So the reduction from 10 feet to 8 feet for the multi-use pathway was based on that constraint in terms of right-of-way. But so there won't be sidewalks, but there will be a single 8-foot pathway to provide pedestrian and bicycle mobility.
So is this project constrained budget-wise or schedule-wise? Is that why right-of-way can't be obtained to provide sidewalks on both sides?
So I'll let the applicant speak a little more to it, but my understanding is that on the western side of North Star Street, it would require demolition of an existing multifamily building, or at least, constraining that site significantly. And on the eastern side, there's the existing AWU parking lot. So there's not really a lot of room to take on either side without very significant costs that would kind of be out of proportion to the benefit. And that was part of the variance request.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the staff? Seeing none. Will the petitioner please come forward? If you could please state and spell your name and let us know if you want any time for rebuttal.
Excuse me. My name is Matt Edge, M-A-T-T-E-D-G-E. I don't really have a presentation today, so I reserve all my time for rebuttal, I suppose.
Okay.
I brought the computer just to put things up on the screen if anybody was interested in seeing a bigger picture
Okay.
of like the landscaping plan and whatnot. But I don't have a specific presentation for the project. Oh, I'm sorry. I do not have a specific presentation for the project. I just brought the laptop so that we could look at the landscaping and whatnot if desired. But if nobody has any questions, and we don't have anything necessarily to present. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay.
If you'd like specifically to the width on the North Star Street, is that something that I need to respond to? Okay, so on the west side of North Star Street, there is an existing multifamily apartment complex that's within just a couple feet of the right-of-way line. We have 30 feet of right-of-way. We are acquiring right-of-way from AWW to widen the facilities. We are maxed out on that right-of-way that we can acquire without starting to affect parking spots that AWW currently uses and values. So once we start doing that, we have to try to find new places on their property to park vehicles that are much farther away from the building as part of the negotiation and try to balance our impacts. We reduced the width to 8 feet, which meets the design criteria manual for the muni to try to limit those impacts. That was the decision. And then we just carried that 8-foot width all the way through to Arctic Boulevard. So that was the concept of that. It also reduced the easement width that we would need on the south side of AWW's property. Although increasing the width to 10 feet is not a game changer, I guess, for us. We just have to get a wider easement from AWW on that side. But we can't do it along North Star Street.
Are there any other questions? I have a question.
Sure.
So the department recommends maintaining that 10-foot. Is that's not something that a condition that you would be able to, let me make sure that that was actually on North Star. Hold on. So condition number 1, the approval is subject to the petitioner's application, and also item 1, the proposed multi-use pathway between North Star Street and Arctic Boulevard shall have a minimum width of 10 feet. So actually, you just stated that you'd be okay with having it 10 feet. That doesn't have you don't have an issue with that. You just get more easement from AWU.
Yeah, we just increased the easement width from 20 feet to 22 feet, and we were able to accommodate the wider pathway. So,
And the number 2, reducing the lanes to 11 feet. I mean, obviously,
yeah, we'll do whatever the traffic department requests us to. We may end up doing something different with striping there just to avoid the wider bike lane to be mistaken for a parking lane. There is on-street parking available there now when we stripe it. Striping something 5 feet wide plus a 1.5-foot gutter pan. We'll just have to work out how we do it, but yeah, we'll follow those requirements.
Commissioner Baxley, you have a question?
Yes, was there a traffic analysis done at all that would, especially going through the major intersections like C Street, that would determine if signals were needed?
So we do have signals at A Street, C Street, and Denali already. So phase 2 of the project is going to replace the signal detection with the Wavetronics radar detections. So we have it'll be able to detect bicycles at the intersections. But yeah, we already have signals there. That phase will also include a new roundabout at the Walmart driveway. I shouldn't talk about that. You guys will see that in a month, the rest of the project. It'll be up for the EDC in a month from now. But yeah, there's significant improvements along the rest of the route. But as far as at Arctic Boulevard, it would be the only other place that we would have a crossing that could potentially use a signal, but it doesn't warrant it for traffic, and we won't know for a pedestrian crossing signal until we actually make the crossing and then do the bike and ped counts and then do a warrant analysis of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like we have no more questions of the petitioner, so looks like we're moving forward. May we have a motion to approve this context-sensitive solutions transportation project site plan review from the municipality of Anchorage? We have a motion from Commissioner Cash and a second from Commissioner Baxley. Commissioner Cash, would you please state your motion?
Yes. I move to approve case number 2020-0023, Context-Sensitive Solutions Plan in Hand Review, subject to the department recommendations 1 and 2.
Thank you. Would you please speak to your motion?
I intend to support this motion and believe this has many positive components to it. It complies with Title 21 via the variance, the planning and zoning variance from the design study report, and costs will be covered by municipal bonds. The O&M costs look to be mitigated by energy efficient lighting and improved materials. And I appreciate that it is creating some community design elements where no goals currently exist. It will improve safety via dedicated pathways, improve lighting, and that plays right into implementing the Anchorage Vision Zero initiative to improve pedestrian and bicycle safety.
Thank you, Commissioner Cash. Commissioner Baxley, would you care to speak to your second?
Yes, I second the motion to approve case 2020-0023, Context-sensitive solutions transportation project site plan review, plans in hand for West 30th Avenue and North Star Street upgrades. Municipality of Anchorage project number 16-29. Based on the department's recommendations on page 8. This approval is subject to the petitioner's application, narrative submittals, and the following plans on file at the Planning Department, except as modified by this condition of approval, number 1 and 2. Number 1 being the proposed multi-use pathway between North Star Street and Arctic Boulevard shall have a minimum width of 10 feet. And number 2, on 32nd Avenue between Arctic Boulevard and C Street, provide 5-foot bicycle lanes and 11-foot vehicle lanes. I think this project is a positive design. I think it's a positive project for Anchorage, and I'm really excited to see this improvement.
Thank you, Commissioner Baxley. Are there any other findings or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, may we move to a vote? And it passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we're moving from the regular agenda to public hearings. Oh, I'm sorry, because there are people in the audience that may or may not be here for this project, I'm going to read the appeal rights for the public. So, an individual may have appeal rights relating to any action of the Urban Design Commission takes, except commission recommendations to the Assembly which are not appealable. Appeals must be filed with the clerk's office within 20 days after approval by the Urban Design Commission of the resolution, which is the commission's final decision. A fee for the appeal is required at the time of filing. So if you have any issues with the vote, you can appeal the vote. Okay, now I'm going to move on to public hearing. And I will read the procedure by which the public may speak to the Urban Design Commission, and something may sound familiar at the end of this. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Urban Design Commission at its meeting is: 1, after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. 2, persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Urban Design Commission rules of procedure, which are as follows. Petitioners receive 10 minutes. Rebuttal by the petitioner may be allowed when time has been reserved. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc., receive 5 minutes, and individuals 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the Commission. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the Commission. An individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Urban Design Commission takes, except Commission recommendations to the Assembly which are not appealable. Appeals must be filed with the clerk's office within 20 days after the approval by the Urban Design Commission of the resolution, which is the Commission's final decision. A fee for the appeal is required at the time of filing. First case on our agenda is case 2020-0019. We have petitioner Franz Weitz before us with a design variance request for off-street parking. May we have staff's presentation?
Thank you, Chair. Jack Sprat Restaurant is applying for a parking variance of 21 parking spaces. The variance is primarily to allow a seasonal outdoor seating area associated with the restaurant. The property has a cabin that has a little gift shop, an office on the top floor of the restaurant building, and a one-bedroom apartment up there as well. But the highest parking driver in terms of the requirement is the restaurant use. The site has non-conforming rights for 18 parking spaces. There are another 8 parking spaces that are adjoining the petition site partially within the right-of-way. These 8 parking spaces cannot be credited as on-site parking for the property because they're partially into the public right-of-way. They should be considered in evaluating the variance, though. That would only make sense. Let's see here. The Girdwood community prides itself on being a walkable, bike-friendly community. There's a lower parking demand overall in the neighborhood. In this community. Separate from this parking variance application before you tonight, Just it's worth noting that the Girdwood Board of Supervisors has drafted new regulations about reducing Girdwood's parking requirements because they don't believe that land should be taken up for parking lots. To date, the case has not been processed to the Assembly or adopted, but it should happen in the near future. No objections to this parking variance were received from any of the reviewing agencies, and notably the Traffic Department supports the parking variance. The Planning Department mailed almost 600 public hearing notices. One public comment was received from a neighbor in favor of granting the variance. 2 public comments were opposed to the granting of the variance. The owners of 2 abutting businesses both submitted letters in support of the parking variance. That's Powderhound Ski Shop and the Alyeska Resort and Hotel. There's a late on the table after the packet was completed item that I would direct you to. It's the Girdwood Board of Supervisors adopted a resolution in support of this application for a 21 parking space reduction. So the Girdwood Board of Supervisors supports this application. The Planning Department finds that all 9 of the approval criteria for a variance are met for the reasons stated on pages 3, 4, and 5 of your packet. The Planning Department is recommending approval of this parking variance subject to conditions 1 through 4 on page 5 of your packet. The petitioner is here to answer any questions, and if you'd like, I could go through each of the variance standards. Be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Commissioner Winchester?
Thank you. So the reason for this variance is, I mean, this has been there for, a long time. Is there modifications being made, upgrades being made? I didn't quite pick up on that.
Yeah, I didn't touch on that. This is the Girdwood Base Resort Zoning District, GRST 1. The applicant has, for the last 3 years or more, I can't remember how many years, but for several years has been hosting events in the summertime out on the lawn and doing some service out there. And that blows out the parking requirement for the site. And so he's squaring it up by seeking a parking variance so that he can use the lawn primarily in the summer for service. I guess the community does some sort of like evening music and things like that as well.
Okay, thank you. I just was trying to figure out because it's been there a long time as it was. And there's something that's changed that now we have to have a variance. So I got it. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Cash?
Thank you. My question is regarding the fact that the basement of the building is dedicated to freezers and food prep, but we still have to include it in the count for parking spaces allocation. I just was curious how many spaces is that equivalent to? The area of the basement.
Ms. Cash, you are correct. I was just going to try and look for what is the square footage of that basement.
Excuse me, it may not be more than 1 or 2 spaces, though.
Well, no, the parking requirement for restaurants is 1 parking space for every 100 square feet. So if you had 1,000 square feet, it'd be 10 parking spaces. Is that it's really high.
It's high. Thank you.
Okay. If there are no other questions of staff, will the petitioner please come forward? Please state and spell your name and let us know if you'd like any time for rebuttal after your presentation.
My name is Franz Weitz, F-R-A-N-S-W-E-I-T-S. Nice pronunciation, thank you. I am the owner-operator of Jack Sprat Restaurant in Girdwood. We're at the base of the resort area. We're the, I think, closest independently owned and operated restaurant to the base of the Alyeska Resort. Thank you for being here on the commission and hearing our case. We put some effort into this over the last couple of years, trying to bring our parking up to code. And if you're familiar with the parcel, there just isn't any more parking on the site. And like you said, it's been there a while. I've operated the restaurant for 19 years, but we bought it a couple of years ago and started to rectify some of the issues. And one of them was using this outdoor space, which has been a benefit to the community. And to clarify, it's not just for an occasional event. We use it as a waiting area for the restaurant, which has limited square footage. So it's kind of transformed into a place where visitors and locals can gather and then come in to eat. So it's been very valuable to the restaurant and our business model, and it's been a benefit to the community. So I'm here to ask the commission for approval of this parking variance so we can continue to operate in the same manner we have. We've used this outdoor space for 6 years now. So, and I'm available for any questions, assuming you've had time to read the packet, but I can clarify anything you need.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the petitioner? Oh, Commissioner McKee?
Do you know what the square foot is of the basement area that's being used for the freezers?
I believe it was all included in the formula. We had the local architect firm verify the square footage, and it's one space for every 100 square feet. So
I think what we're trying to find out is if the basement area has an X number of square feet, it may reduce the number of parking spaces you're actually required to have. Okay. And could reduce what the considerations would be.
Which would be nice, yeah. I don't have that exact number in front of me, I don't think, but.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yeah, so Franz and I talked about each individual floor, and he has an architectural drawing of each floor, but it's, I didn't want to overcomplicate things. I don't think it's included here in the packet. I don't think that the square footage of the basement, which is considered restaurant and calculated with that high restaurant parking requirement, although the public isn't allowed to go there. So sort of the idea around parking requirements is it's about 100 square foot for a tabletop, which is like 4 people, and so 1 parking space per tabletop. But if you have a really large restaurant, then you kind of get hosed, right? You get hit with a really big parking requirement. So like the yogurt lounge, has a pretty small area where people are eating yogurt or eating frozen yogurt. If they have a big operation of making the ice cream in the back, they get hit with a really high parking requirement. And this is a pretty unique property. If you just look at the drawing of the property, it sort of meets the standards of a parking variance because of its uniqueness while meeting the intent of the zoning district, the Girdwood base district. So I think what the commission could say is that a portion of the restaurant doesn't have any access to the public. Any public access to it. It's part of the freezer, storage, and prep area, and yet our code requires it to be counted towards the parking requirement, assuming I can't come up with the square footage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. So just to point out, on page 57 of the packet, there is the tax information for the property, and if anyone can discern B10102M1 B101, it gives the square footage. Would you like to clarify that for me, Commissioner Clark?
Yes, this is kind of my area. So I believe the B1, there's two B1s, and I think that's the basement area. That looks like about 380 feet.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to Commissioner Winchester.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question, more curiosity. How many seats do you have in the restaurant?
We have 98.
98?
And then the outdoor space is obviously seasonal. It's buried in snow right now. So.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a sense of, as far as the square footage.
And to put it in context, we're essentially permitted for parking if we just operate inside.
Right.
So the thing that triggered this was the outside space.
Understood. Thank you.
Commissioner McKee?
Hi, so there's a positive comment here from the Alyeska Resort encouraging us to approve the variance. That large parking area that's kind of outside the bake shop, is that their parking space?
Correct.
Okay, so,
Yep.
and they know that there's probably some overflow parking occurring there, and they have no objection?
Correct, yep. And we've asked for shared parking agreements with them before, but they also have plans, and they're leery to do that, plus they're sharing with the bake shop, the condo owners, and the other businesses up there. So that didn't go anywhere, so we ended up doing a design variance application.
Just was curious, because I would assume that their parking spaces are the greatest affected, and they are in support of the variance as well.
They are, and, to that point, when their parking lot's full and I'm not open during the day, most days, their skiers are also parking in the right-of-way spots in front at times. So it's a shared situation, and there's quite a bit of on-street parking around that loop that sometimes gets underutilized. So.
If there are no other questions of the petitioner, we will now open the hearing to public testimony. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Weitz. Is there anyone here who wishes to testify? Please. Sir, if you want to testify, could you come up here? We need to get you on record. And we would appreciate your testimony. But you might have to state your name and spell it for us.
William Brownfield, Brownfield.
Thank you.
Yeah, I remember the freezers downstairs. There's a place for our clothes and to dress, but there's also a loading area that's probably at least 380 square feet. I mean, I'm just thinking that maybe that designation didn't indicate the size of it, because I was thinking closer to 1,000 square feet down there, 800 something. But I was just an observation. But I was thinking it was that big, and then you said it's 380, and I just thought seems like it's a lot bigger than that.
Thank you. I think we have a question for you, Commissioner Clark.
It's not really a question, it's more of a comment. As I have found over the years, that the numbers that the municipality has in its records for anything, it's not that accurate. Generally speaking, the 380 is probably what they have there.
Okay, I found that too. But thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, are there any other questions of staff or the petitioner? But does the petitioner want to use the remaining time for rebuttal? Okay. The petitioner has indicated he does not wish to use his time. If there are no other questions, then the public hearing is now closed. May we have a motion? We have a motion from Commissioner Winchester and a second from Commissioner McKee. Commissioner Winchester, would you please state your motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move for approval of Case number 2020-0019, variance from AMC 210709OE, off-street parking requirements to allow 21 fewer parking spaces than required. Alyeska North, number 1, Track B. Pursuant to department recommendations 1 through 4, as outlined in the packet.
Thank you. And can you please speak to your motion?
Madam Chair, yes, I'm going to support this amendment. The staff has done a remarkable job of supporting this variance. There's been public comment from a couple, 3 folks, and of course the owners of the surrounding surrounding businesses, Alyeska Resort and the Hotel and the Powder Hound Ski Shop both support. The Board of Supervisors of Girdwood have provided us with a letter of support. Additional findings include that the proposed alternative achieves the intent of the subject design standard in the same or better degree of subject standards. Item A, the standard is met. The parking variance achieves these intent by making efficient use of the property and the parking and the mixed-use site. Item B, the proposed achieved alternative achieves the goals and policies of a comprehensive plan to the same or better degree than the subject standard. The standard is met. This parcel is classified as resort, 1995 Girdwood Land Use Plan. And this variance will not change the classification of this parcel. It's been used, as the petitioner said, for 19 years in this situation with really no major changes in that particular use and with the parking that is existing. The proposed, item C, the proposed alternative results in beneficial to the community that are equivalent or better than the compliance with the subject standards. The standard is met. Girdwood's a travel destination, tourism, leisure. We agree that Jack Sprat Restaurant is a long-time business, over 19 years, and continues to use the facility and then basically to bring forward the use of the lawn for seasonal outdoor seating and entertainment. The variance is granted will not adversely affect item D, affect the use of adjacent property as permitted under this code. The standard is met. 2 of the adjacent property businesses have provided letters, as we previously stated. Item E, the variance is granted does not change the character of the zoning district where the property is located in keeping with the intent of the code and does not permit the use nor otherwise permitted in the district in which the property lies. The standard is met. This does not change the character of the GRST1 district, and that has been remaining that way for almost 20 years. We could go in through item F, which is ADA. Standard is met. The variance regarding health, safety, and welfare of the people of the municipality, the standard is met. And also item H, evaluating request for variance, the maximum sign height, and the standard is met. The variance does not involve a sign. I really personally support this. I've been to Jack Sprat's many times over the last 20 years and actually was involved in the construction of the original resort there. And I know exactly what the parking situation has evolved over the last 40 years, actually, because that's how long I was involved down there. So I really support that this is now being encoded so that these particular businesses down there that kind of evolved over many, many years are now getting kind of coded up so they're protected over the long term. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner McKee, would you speak to your second?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I also intend to move for approval of case number 2020-0019, the request variance from AMC 21.07.090E for off-street parking requirements to allow 21 fewer parking spaces than required, pending that the approval is subject to the 4 stated conditions provided by the department. I also agree that the standards A through H that Commissioner Winchester spoke to have been met. I think the reason I intend to support this motion is also that Girdwood is a walking and recreation-based community. They also are improving their transit. There's a shuttle, there's a bus. You know, there's a lot of people in the community that walk and bike to this location, so I don't see that there's a need to increase the amount of on-street or off-street parking that's available. It also seems that the community of Girdwood intends to try to move away from the variance requirements that would have this much parking, and the adjacent neighbors that would be the most affected if you weren't having more parking are in support of the variance. So those are my reasons I intend to improve this variance.
Thank you. Assuming there are no other findings or additional discussion, we need to move to a vote. And the motion passes. Thank you. We have one more case on our public hearing agenda this evening, case 20200028. The petitioner is the Lower Yukon School District, and they are requesting a design variance for planting bed. May we have the staff's presentation?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The petitioner is applying for a variance from AMC 2107-080-E2B, which is parking lot perimeter landscaping, to the minimum average planting bed width of 8 feet for a planting bed that averages 7 feet. So the Lower Yukon School District purchased the former Longhouse Hotel property to serve as a place for students from Western Alaska to stay and attend classes while in Anchorage. Upon review of the nonconforming determination for the administrative approval of a hostel, it was discovered that the lack of parking lot perimeter landscaping was not a legal nonconforming character of use and was in violation. The existing conditions on site do not meet the minimum 8-foot bed width requirements as required for visual enhancement landscaping. So the existing landscaping bed along the south edge of the property is 7'9" at its widest and 6'1" at its narrowest, with an average width of 7 feet. There's also a site obscuring fence along the property line. The planning department mailed 375 public hearing notices. No public comments were received, and the Turning Community Council did provide comments. In the matter of findings, staff finds that Standard A has been met, requiring the full width of the parking lot perimeter landscaping bed along the south property line in accordance with Title 21 would impact the parking lot's turning and maneuvering space, causing a safety concern. The required landscaping can still be located in the bed while not negatively impacting parking. Standard B has been found to be met. The parcel is classified as a Main Street corridor within a transit supportive development corridor in the 2040 Anchorage Land Use Plan. The granting of this variance will not change the classification of this parcel. The following goals of the Anchorage 24 plan apply. That's Goal 7, compatible land use. Infill development is compatible with the valued characteristics of surrounding property and neighborhoods. The facility is developed and operated in a manner to reduce its impacts to surrounding properties with the existing fence and mature landscaping. Standard C has been found to be met. The proposed alternative results in a benefit to the community that is equivalent to the subject standard. Increasing the landscape planting bed to full width would in turn decrease the drive aisle for traffic and parking and potentially cause a safety conflict between pedestrians and vehicles. The existing mature vegetation and fence provide screening of the parking lot, which is equivalent to or better than the subject standard. The staff finds that Standard D has been met. The granting of the variance will not adversely affect the use of the adjacent properties. The plantings run along the entire south property line to screen the view of the parking lot pavement from the neighboring property, and that's been in that condition since 1996. Staff finds that Standard E has been met. Hostels are permitted within the RO district, subject to an approval of administrative permit, which the facility has obtained and is going through the process of that. This variance request is being processed in accordance with the procedures of AMC 2103-240, which is variances, and is in keeping with the intent of the code. Standard F has been met. The granting of the variance would not impede ADA accessibility. Standard G, staff finds that standard is met. The granting of the variance will allow the existing fence and landscaping bed to exist and does not appear to negatively affect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Staff finds Standard H is met. The variance does not involve a sign. Therefore, staff is recommending conditions 1 and 2 and approval of the variance found on page 6 of the staff report. And I'll be here I can answer any questions, and the applicant is here as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Hearing none, will the petitioner please come forward? Please state and spell your name for the record, and if you would like any time remaining for rebuttal.
Hello, I'm Dale Smythe, D-A-L-E-S-M-Y-T-H-E, representing the Lower Yukon School District. I'll reserve all remaining time for rebuttal. I want to thank you guys first for what you're doing here. I also serve on the Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals, and it coincidentally always conflicts with some other thing that I would like to be doing on a weekday evening. Our meeting tomorrow is canceled, so I appreciate your time here. And in light of that, I'm also going to keep it pretty brief. When I get an application that makes sense, is well done, and has department approval, I want the petitioner to be very quick so I can approve it and go home. And I don't want to be presumptuous, but I will respect your time here. What I'd like to share is, I think this is a perfect example of why the variance process exists. This is a very simple request. The project has upgraded that facility not only to a new and much improved use for the community, if you're familiar with what it was before as the Longhouse Hotel. Through the improvements that the school district has done, we've increased the fire protection of the facility, general life safety, alarm systems. It has had other landscaping upgrades. They've done some security improvements, as mentioned previously with the fence. So what we're getting here is a much improved project, an improvement to the neighborhood. I would say definitely improvement to the city of Anchorage. And what we're asking for is a variance to a planning bed that doesn't make any sense in this situation. My understanding is that width is required to improve the potential for the landscaping to survive. With the length of time this has already been here, that's irrelevant. The trees have survived. They're there. We have done other landscaping improvements in other areas to meet current requirements. So the school district has done, I think, a fantastic job in cooperating with the city's requirements, planning, zoning, otherwise, and improving the property for the right reasons. So with that, I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Looks like there are no questions at this time. So we will now open the hearing to public testimony. Is there anyone here wishing to testify? Please state, spell your name for the record.
Kathy Gleason, C-A-T-H-Y-G-L-E-A-S-O-N. Thank you, Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Kathy Gleason, and I'm President of Turnagain Community Council.
And are you here representing the Community Council?
I am.
Thank you. That helps us with our time.
Thank you. Hopefully I won't even take up the whole 5 minutes, but I can, so maybe I will. Anyway, this property is not located within our council boundaries. It is within the Spenard Council boundaries, but our boundary is right in that area, is directly north on, I believe that's West 42nd Avenue. And so the multi-family housing just right across the street to the north of this facility is in Turnagain. And so that's why we received the notice, and we felt like it would be appropriate to go ahead and review the packet and submit some comments. And our letter is included in your packet on pages 39 and 40. And we absolutely approve of the variance request. That landscaping has been there a long time, and it is healthy, and it's survived a lot, I think, over time based on some of the activities of how that land used to be used. So I agree with the petitioner that they have improved the use of that land and that location, and that helps our community as well as Spenard. So we appreciate that. We don't see any reason to increase that bed, and we just feel like that's the most appropriate manner forward, is to provide a variance for that requirement. And we also like the addition of the landscaping that was proposed in the packet as well. The only thing that we also noted is there isn't really any landscaping at all, and especially larger trees on the north side, the side that does face the Turnagain Council boundary and the multi-housing that looks on to that facility. There is fencing there that has been put up, but our suggestion is to also work with the petitioner and see that some trees, nothing fancy, no shrubbing, no anything, because we wouldn't be able to see it through the fencing anyway. But so residents would have a little bit of a softening to that buffer on the north side of the property. And my husband and I have been known to donate some trees around Turnagain the last several years, so just FYI, we'd even work with the petitioner as to see if they, funding doesn't allow for any additional landscaping in a formal way, that maybe we could plant something there on the north side and just what is now just lawn. As you look, if you go past some existing trees and then a small parking lot, and then there's just lawn over to the east boundary of the property. So those were just our thoughts on this. Did notice in the packet that there is site landscaping requirements, not just parking lot perimeter requirements, and so we are a little bit curious why that northern side of the building wasn't looked at in terms of potentially needing some landscaping there. But it's nothing we want to formally push, but we're certainly interested in seeing some vegetation as well on that side. And I believe that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we may have do we have a question for, okay. We have Commissioner Clark has a question for you.
Have you reached out to the petitioner in regards to this the tree planting that you...
We have not, and that's just my bad. We approved this letter at our February meeting that is in your packet. I've been out of town, I've been busy, so no, and also we'll see what your body does tonight, and if that's a favorable opportunity, then we certainly will. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we don't have any more questions for you. Thank you, Ms.
Okay,
Gleason.
thank you.
Would the petitioner like to come up and use any time for a rebuttal?
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to add, I'm fairly certain we do have landscaping to the west that's been added. The north side was difficult only because they do have a bus that they want to operate, and they're storing it on that north side. There were some challenges with the gate and the fire hydrant and some of the easements along that north edge specifically. I would say with fair certainty that this owner would love to be cooperative with anyone interested in giving free trees, especially, and otherwise to support the neighborhood. Their commitment to this project and what it does for the students has been pretty amazing. So with that, thanks again.
Thank you. If there are no more questions of staff or the petitioner, then the public hearing is now closed, unless there's anyone else who wishes to testify. My apologies. Is there anyone else? Thank you. The public hearing is now closed. Can we get a motion to approve? We have a motion from Commissioner Baxley and a second from Commissioner Winchester. Commissioner Baxley, would you please state and speak to your motion?
Yes, I move to approve the case 2020-0028, and this is a variance from Anchorage Municipal Code 21.07.080, E.2.B, parking lot perimeter landscaping. Landscaping specifications to the minimum average planting bed width of 8 feet for planting bed that averages 7 feet. And I move to approve this case based on the department's comments. They had met, or they had found that the following standards were met on pages 3 through 5, based on, they were only met based on the following conditions listed on page 6, which is variance from AMC 21.07.080 E2B parking lot perimeter landscaping table, 21.07-1 landscaping specifications to the minimum average planting bed width of 8 feet. For a planting bed, the average is 7 feet as specified in the application narrative and shown in the site plan. LYSD Longhouse renovation landscape plan, sheet L101, L401, L402, L403, dated September 26, 2019, prepared by Bettesworth North Architects. And also number 2 is the second condition. Prior to this variance becoming effective, a notice of zoning action shall be filed with the State of Alaska District Recorder's Office, including a site plan and a copy of the resolution of approval. I really I liked listening to you, Kathy, and knowing that you were willing, or you are willing, to work with the petitioner to provide trees and to help the petitioner in any way possible in case they had any budget issues or constraints. And I think this is good for the community. This is good for the school district, that they're able to have a place for learning and a nice place for the community. And I agree with this case. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Winchester, would you care to speak to your second?
Yes, Madam Chair. I will be supporting this variance. Again, it is a small variance of 1 foot average on a planting bed, and it has been in place. The landscaping is already in place and very mature and obviously successful in those locations. And also that the Planning Department mailed out 375 public notices, and with no public comment, and the only public comment we got was in support by the Turnagain Community Council. So I think all the standards were met. So I think this is a good case and meets the requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Winchester. Is any other discussion? Seeing and hearing none, may we move to vote? The motion passes. Thank you. That concludes our public hearing portion of the agenda. Moving on, is there anything that the committee would like to speak of, or the secretary tonight? Okay, so we move on now to the annual elections, is that correct? Okay, so moving on to the reordered agenda, we've got the annual elections that we must vote on. So I don't know. Okay, may we have a motion to nominate the chair first? The chair position. We have a motion from Commissioner Clark and a second from Commissioner McKee. Commissioner Clark?
I would like to nominate the current chair to be the chair.
Thank you. Commissioner McKee, would you care to speak to your second?
I second the motion that the existing chair continues to act as the chair.
Thank you. Vote? Okay, may we have a vote? Okay, looks like we are keeping myself as chair. We have one more vote, or one more election here. We need to get a motion to nominate the vice chair. We have a motion from Commissioner Baxley and a second from Commissioner Clark. Commissioner Baxley?
I move to continue to have Jerry Winchester be the vice chair. I think he's doing an excellent job.
Thank you. Commissioner Clark?
I agree.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, let's vote. And it looks like Commissioner Winchester will be staying in as vice chair. I think that brings us to the end of our agenda. If there's nothing else anybody wants to add, can I get a motion to adjourn? We have a motion from Commissioner Cash and a second from McKee. We are adjourned.